On today's episode of Hotel Industry Talk, today's guest might just inspire you to pack your bags and finally take that solo trip you've been dreaming about. I'm so excited to welcome Laura Ericson, a soulful storyteller, intentional traveler, and the heart behind her group travel company and her newest podcast, Type 2 Travel, where she curates group adventures that go far beyond the itinerary. Laura's journey started with one solo trip, but quickly evolved into a mission to help others step outside their comfort zones, connect through travel, and experience the transformation that happens when you say yes to the unknown. From leading trips through Morocco, India, Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba, to building a community rooted in vulnerability, trust, and connection, Laura doesn't just plan trips. She creates experiences that change people. In this episode, we talk about why unplanned moments are often the most magical, the power of travel to heal and spark courage, creating safe spaces and meaningful connection through intentional travel, and yes, we even play a fun game of who has the most photos on their phone. If you've ever felt the nudge to take a solo trip or reconnect with yourself through travel, this episode is your sign. So grab your favorite cozy drink and settle in. Let's dive into what it means to travel with purpose and ignite your flame. Laura, thank you so much for being here with us. I'm excited. I mentioned to you this before the call. You inspire me, and what you're doing is really just moving. And I felt so deeply connected to what you're doing when I came across your page on Instagram. So thank you again for being here and for sharing all that you're doing with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, Laura. So we're going to start with a round of authentic questions. And the first one is, being that you travel a lot, what are some things you absolutely have to take with you on each trip?
You know, it's funny. I used to be a very light packer, and now it feels like the more I travel, the more I pack. I feel like it normally goes the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But it's like the more I travel with groups too, because I'm kind of like group trip mom. So I've got all the stuff, in case anybody needs anything. So, but just personally, like if I'm going to travel, I always have at least one like battery pack charger, sometimes two or three, kind of depends on the trip. Definitely don't leave without those. What else do I have? I mean, depending on the trip, I might have a camera. Definitely, absolutely my phone, because my phone is my camera and it's everything else. Even a backup phone I often have, just because I've run into issues there. I think it really depends on the trip though. Like it depends where I'm going and what I'm going to have access to. I find that the more remote I go, the more stuff I might prepare for, because you can't pick it up versus, if you're somewhere and you know that you can just go to like Walgreens around the corner or something, I'm a little less worried about like packing everything. Or if you're staying in a hotel, hotels provide a lot of amenities that you can use there versus if I'm staying in a tent or I'm on a sailboat. So it really depends. But like I would say my core things, aside from like my clothes and the obvious things, toiletries, are battery pack and phone for sure. And this is gonna sound like an advertisement, but I love sand cloud blankets, towels. I don't go anywhere without at least one of them. They are literally the best thing ever, and I probably should be a spokesperson for them because I use them on the plane, I use them while I travel, I use them in the shower, I use them on the beach. They're amazing.
Wow. Okay, I need to look that up. And you actually have a really great curated list on your website of like different things. And I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting." So, I'm excited to go on your site too to learn more about what you love. So, if your passport could talk, what's one moment it would constantly rave about?
That was a hard question for me when I saw that because I have so many, but I have a couple that come to the top of my mind, and the common theme with all of them is they're the unplanned moments. I think people always find it ironic with me as a travel planner, like they kind of assume that everything is planned out. And yes, a lot of it is, but like I always still like thrive in those moments that aren't planned, the unexpected, the things that just kind of happen, like that you can't plan for. Those are like to me the most magical moments. And I've had lots of them, obviously. I've had them on group trips and I've had them in my own travels or in my scouting trips. But one in particular that comes to mind is Cappadocia, Turkey. I did a photo shoot with two guys who spoke no English. I spoke no Turkish. I was with my friend and we did like the flying dress photo shoot, which used to be popular a few years ago. I think they're still kind of popular, but they're a little overdone at this point. Anyway, we did it a few years ago. Woke up at like sunrise, did this whole trudged through the valleys of Cappadocia in the dark in these long dresses with like, they're ridiculous. Spent the whole day with them, and then like when the photo shoot was over, they asked us if we wanted to like go have drinks, and we were like, yeah, sure, whatever. So like we're sitting there all day like using Google Translate to talk to these guys because like we literally do not speak, they speak no English, which is pretty rare. I feel like usually people speak some.
Yeah.
And then at some point in the day they were like, do you want to go to a wedding tonight? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like exactly what we're supposed to be doing here. And my friend was too tired, so she didn't go. So these two guys picked me up to take me to a Turkish wedding. It was actually a Kurdish wedding, which is even like way more out there than a Turkish wedding. I get there and I'm sitting there and like talking to these guys, and I'm like, yeah, so how do you know the bride and the groom? And they're like, oh, we don't. And I was like, what do you mean you don't? And they're like, yeah, no, like we're all crashing this wedding. I thought I was crashing the wedding with these guys, with their friends. No, 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 they were crashing the wedding too. So we were literally, and we were the last people at the wedding. Like we had the best time, and none of us were invited, and nobody seemed to care. They were all just like excited to have like the token American girl at their wedding, but it was a super fun night.
I love that. Now, I feel like you're, like you said, yes, you said yes, like this is where I'm supposed to be, so we're going. Have you always been that way, or did you learn to be that way?
I would say I have evolved into that much
Yeah.
more than maybe when I was like younger. I was pretty shy as a kid, and a lot more cautious and like a lot afraid of my own shadow, probably, to be honest, when I was little. And I think I've like slowly evolved into that, to the point where, yeah, now I don't say no to a lot of things unless it's really something I don't feel like doing. But like it takes a lot to scare me or to make me feel unsafe. Um, I do a lot of things that most people, when I say it, they're like, that
Yeah.
maybe like isn't the best idea. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a good judge of character, and I'm still alive. I've made it through I have a lot of stories like that, and I'm still here. So I think people are, yes, you need to be mindful when you travel of situations, and you always need to have your guard up. But at the same time, like also need to like use your gut and trust people, and that a lot of people are inherently good. And I think like using your intuition will take you a long way when you travel, instead of just always being afraid. Because I think like being afraid doesn't get you those experiences.
Yeah, that is so amazing. I actually have a really great friend. And the movie The Hangover, the "but did you die" phrase, like I kid you, she's definitely a yes person. Like, let's just go try it. And I'm the type of person like, okay, fine, let's just go. But I am a little timid at first because I'm like, wait, I gotta assess the environment and feel like I'm not being threatened in any way.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, every time we've gone and done something, it's been the best experience. So our joke, she always says, "But did you die?" And I'm like, no.
Yeah, I say that on my trips all the time. I literally have a shirt that says it, and I wear it on my group trips usually when we're doing something where people think they're gonna die. But I do say, I'm like, when people are kind of like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "Yeah, but are we okay? Did we make it?" Or even if they're complaining about something that isn't really that big of a deal, I'm like, "Are we gonna die, or are we gonna be okay? Are we gonna be a little uncomfortable for a little bit? Do we have cold showers for a day? Like, are we gonna survive? Okay, like we can get through this. Deep breaths." Like, it's kind of my motto in life, not just for like making like bold choices and taking risks, but also just like putting things into perspective, that like some of these things are not that big of a deal.
Right. That's so good. And going back to like, because we live in this country, right? It's like the privilege we grew up with, having warm water, right? Versus other countries where it may be harder to get. That's amazing. What about your go-to ritual? Like, what is your travel ritual? Do you have any?
Um, I have probably a few things. I think one is I always try to take a cooking class in a new country.
Okay.
I love to cook, and I love international food. I'm a big foodie, and I find that like taking a cooking class, not only like do I just like cooking and learning about food, but like you also get so much more out of it than just the baseline, food recipes, cooking skills. Like you often are doing it with a local, and so you're getting to hear their stories, you're getting to learn, a little bit about their culture, their family. Sometimes you're even doing it in their home, so you're getting to see like what a local home looks like. Yeah, it's to me like the one of the most authentic things I do when I travel is taking a cooking class, just because you're getting kind of not always one-on-one, but you're getting much more of an intimate experience than it's generally not like a cooking studio. It's usually like I said, a more authentic, intimate experience that you get to have with a local. So that would be one. And then
Yeah.
in general, I'm just always taking tons of photos and posting on Instagram stories, and it's a super time consuming thing that I do. But not only do I do it for other people, I do it for myself, because
Yeah.
like my photos are my memories. Like I look
Mhm.
back in my phone all the time to like remember something I did, or someone might say like, "Hey, do you have recommendations for something?" And it's like, I kind of know what I did, but I don't really remember. I refer back to my photos and my stories all the time so that I can remember like the things I've done in
Yeah.
different countries.
I love that. Now I have I don't know if do you have your phone with you?
I do.
Do you have okay, so I'm curious, and I don't know if you have an Apple phone, but mine will tell me my total number of photos I
Oh,
have.
you,
I
you
would
don't want
love
to
to know.
know.
Yeah, I do want to know. And then I'll share mine because I'm a big I love photographs, and I could be the annoying like mom at home with my dog and my fiance where I'm like, we have to take a photo. We have to take a photo.
I play this game with my friends all the time.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a guess?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm gonna say, and you don't clean them out, like you just keep them, right? And I'm assuming. Okay. Oh gosh. Um, I'm gonna say you have 100,000.
As of today, I have 229,072 photos and videos. Um,
Oh,
I have a s- I have a 6 terabyte storage plan with Apple. It's like a family plan for myself, and I think it's over half full.
I just
It's no joke.
that is so funny. I have 48,000, so I'm not even. But I to your point, I can't get rid of photos. But I am. I used to be a scrapbooker, like in high school and a little bit after high school, and I'm not so much now. But I've been printing out all my photos the last several years, and now I have them in albums. So that's
That's
kind of like
awesome.
they're my baby. Yeah, I always Shutterfly. I go on there and I just print out all these photos. Sometimes they're free. I'll get them for, just pay for shipping. And yeah, I mean, it's been, and I love it because when people come over, it's like, you want to look at pictures. I'm that cheesy person, and it gives people something to do. And I feel like, especially new people who come over, like if one of our friends brings a partner, it just settled them into like just everything. And I don't. Everybody likes photos.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love that your vulnerability you share on your website that you had were divorced, and after your divorce you like that's when travel ignited, and then you also shared like during COVID like how you were all cooped up and the world was just cooped up, and I remember feeling like, oh man, I have a longing for travel because I traveled a lot, not internationally like you, which is I'm excited to get to, but I would love to know like that part of being ignited. What were the trips after that you took, and then how did you feel when you were like leading up to the trips? Like was it excitement, anxiety, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning of the pandemic, like literally the day that everything shut down, I was on my way to Cuba. I was going with a now ex-boyfriend. He lives in Miami, or I think he does. I don't know. I don't talk to him, but um, I wish him well. But we were on our way to Cuba, and I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. Like things were starting to get a little dicey, and I was like, oh, like Cuba is not the place you want to be stuck without technology. So we canceled the trip. And then, we were kind of like at the time we were like, we'll go back in like 2, 3 months when this stuff settles down, right? Yeah, it didn't happen. So fast forward, we broke up. I was like just super upset during the whole pandemic because not only did the pandemic suck, but I went through this horrible breakup.
Mhm.
And then I couldn't go anywhere. And like when I remember going to therapy, and my therapist was like, well, it's like the typical thing you say to somebody, like, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? Like, what will keep you distracted and whatever. And I was like, travel.
Mm.
Like, I want to travel and I can't. Like, the one thing that I feel like would really help me, I can't do right now. And so it felt like I like cut off my leg. I just felt like I felt so trapped. Like everyone felt we're all stuck in our houses and we're not able to do things. But just having like plan after plan after plan canceled and feeling like I had nothing to look forward to made me realize like how important travel really was for me. I'd obviously traveled a lot previously, but it really like, I don't know, something changed within me in the pandemic with my career, with how I looked at relationships, how I looked at life. I just kind of like had this like moment of, okay, like I think like the world stopped for a while and everyone had a moment to like, that's why I think a lot of people ended marriages, a lot of people went through breakups, a lot of people quit their jobs. That's when the great resignation happened. Like a lot of shit just kind of like blew up and fell apart during the pandemic, and a lot of people I think reprioritized their lives. And so for me, it was like, okay, when I am going to prioritize travel. Like this is going to be like where I put my time, my energy, my money. And so as things like slowly started to clear up, I went on a trip to, I think I went to Mexico, which it was just the only place that we were allowed to go. So I went to Mexico. Um, and then I planned a trip to Colombia. I was actually going with a group travel company and they canceled the trip because this was like early 2021, like people were just getting vaccinated. They were like, yeah, I don't think like this is going to happen. So they canceled the trip and I was like, I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if I don't go with this group. I was only going with the group so I didn't have to go alone. I was like, I can plan the trip. I just didn't want to go alone. So I found a girl in a Facebook group. It was a breakup Facebook group, embarrassingly. And I basically said I was looking for somebody to go on a trip with me. And she was like, I don't even know where Colombia is, but I'll go with you. So we met in like the Atlanta airport. I was like, I'll do all the planning. You just have to come along. She was a photographer, so it worked out. And yeah, so Colombia was kind of my first, like, it wasn't, I wouldn't say post-pandemic because it really was the thick of the pandemic still.
Right.
It was my first like trip that I planned with the idea in mind that maybe I was going to do something different with my life. I didn't have my group travel business started yet, but I had the idea. And so when I talked to her about it, I was like, you know, I have this crazy idea. Like, I kind of want to start this thing and like help people like you see the world. Cause I saw how she was like, I didn't even know Colombia was a country. Like, she didn't even, it was never a thought in her mind to go somewhere like that. But she loved it. She was like, it was so amazing, but I never would have done this on my own. I never would have thought to go there and I wouldn't have known how to plan it and I wouldn't have done it without you. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I think this is something I could actually like take and run with. So I did Colombia. Next I did Mexico City, brought a friend there. And then I'd always gone to Mexico repeatedly over and over and over. I've probably been there like 25 times, but Mexico City and central Mexico and inland Mexico is so different than resort Mexico that most Americans are used to. And so that really made me want to show people like a different side of Mexico than what we're used to seeing, and show people that it's okay to go somewhere different in Mexico. It's not sketchy. You're not going to get kidnapped by the cartel. Like, it's okay. And I wanted to go during Day of the Dead. So that ended up being my first ever like group trip. And then after that, I went to Turkey. I took a friend to Turkey, and that's the trip I was just telling you about. So those were like my three first,
Wow.
let's call them scouting trips,
Yeah.
without me really like fully knowing that I was going to do this or like knowing what I was going to do. By the time I got to Turkey, I knew I wanted to start this business and I didn't have the balls to do it. And I remember I was in a hot air balloon in Cappadocia, Turkey, and it was just on my bucket list to have this moment. I had seen a picture of the hot air balloons and I was like, I'm going there. And I was like in that hot air balloon and I was like, I had this moment of like, life is way too short to sit around like wishing and hoping and like wondering if I could do this. I'm like, just like, there's never going to be this like right moment. And so I went home after that trip and put in my 30 days notice, like quit my job, started the travel business. Like it sounds so simple, but that's literally what it was. I was like,
Yeah.
I got to a point of just screw it. And those three trips, those three countries are really what kind of got me excited and ignited my passion for doing this.
Yeah, that is so good. It's so inspirational. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, for people listening, I read Laura like 26 countries, many of them multiple times. Like you said, Mexico, you've been to quite often. You've lived in Spain twice. And then, just to recap, in 2021, that's when you said 14-year career you left to start your own business. And I mean, that leap is incredible. And it's it's that, and it's also what you've created. So I want to shift the conversation to helping women, because I've seen you help women, and then I also see you have co-ed group co-ed trips, so just
Mhm.
solo travel. And I feel like you are targeting a market of people that I do believe that it's in them and it's tugging at their soul, that they want to take these trips like you had, right? And you want to find just one person to go with. Like, you don't want to go alone. And you've created that. So what do you think holds people back by not like going on a solo trip with a group? What do you think that fear is?
I think it's so many things and it's so like individualized,
Yeah.
and it's different for every person, but some really common ones are safety,
Mhm.
money.
Yeah.
What are other people going to think, especially with my trips, because I tend to go to places that have negative stereotypes around them that I find that aren't true. But like, like, oh, so and so says I can't go here, or so and so says I shouldn't go there, or that's sketchy or whatever. There's some of that. I think there's people who think like, oh, who am I to be the person to go traveling internationally? Or like, I think there's people that think like that type of travel wasn't made for people like them. They just think like they were meant to stay in their hometown. I think there's people who are scared of flying. There's people who are scared of flying across oceans, people who are scared of being in airports by themselves. Even the thought of like signing up for a trip with strangers, it's I have this like, I think there's this misconception about what solo travel is, and I don't think there is one actual definition. I think it means different things to different people, because solo travel, like, yes, you could just go out on your own and take a trip by yourself, and that of course is solo travel. But you also can leave your friends and family behind and sign up to go travel with a group of strangers in a foreign country. And that's solo travel too. You're doing it in a group, but you don't know anybody, and you're still flying on your own, and you're getting there on your own, and you're trusting a stranger on the internet, me, not knowing like when
Yeah.
you get on the other side of like
Yeah.
how it's going to turn out. Like, I think that is just as ballsy, and I think it's still solo travel if that's what it means to you. Um, I think there's people who are scared to leave their family behind. There's moms who feel guilt over leaving their kids behind, or even just taking a trip for themselves and like not including their family in it. I think it's really like individual to each person, and we all have these fears and like limiting beliefs around travel. I think it really depends. But um as far as like helping them overcome their fears, I think like I didn't do this on purpose, but I learned along the way that like people are watching me and seeing what I'm doing. And I think them watching me inspires them and gives them confidence and encouragement to do it on their own. Whether it gives them the confidence to sign up for a trip with me, or like, oh, well, she can do it, I can do it too. I've had people say, I followed your itinerary in Mexico City and took my own trip, or I never thought I wanted to go to Cuba until I saw that you went there and you ended up coming out alive. Like, I think it really is like giving people like that encouragement and like that little bit of an extra push to be able to do it on their own. And I think I also see like people going on my trips as kind of the gateway to them traveling more, whether they're going on more trips with me after that, or just now I see somebody who maybe never left the country going all over, or now they're taking trips with other people they've met on my trips and they're going all over. I see all these variations of that, but I've seen people like they've never flown alone before, or have never done anything like this, and after they go on a trip, like they're a completely different person.
So, I was just thinking, like, when people are starting to book, so before your planning process of choosing destinations, but on your site, like me going to your website and making that initial, like, I'm interested for, and what happens
Hmm.
next? And then has there ever been anybody to say, again, going back to fear, like, I can't do it anymore? And have you just kind of talked them through that, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I always say like I'm not selling t-shirts.
Yeah.
So the buying decision is different. The stakes are
Mhm.
higher. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot of people I'll find like they'll join a trip and I'll be like, "Oh, how did you hear about my trips?" And they'll be like, "I've been following you for 3 years." Like,
Mhm.
so this isn't necessarily always a quick decision for people. Some people I think they just like they find me, they see a trip, they're like, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
But I think frequently it's also the latter, the opposite, where it's like, okay, I've been thinking about this for a really long time and I've been waiting to like pull the trigger, and I've been, and then finally something like makes them make that decision. But Yeah, I get a lot of people who they think about it and they think about it and they ask questions and they're just kind of, and I'm like, is there anything can I get on a call with you? Like, happy to talk you through it, but like, I can't make that decision for somebody, obviously, on whether or not they want to go or whether or not, I don't think it's even that they want to go. It's like, are they willing to do what it takes to
Yeah.
go? Are they brave enough to go? Can
Yeah.
they figure out the time off of work? Or, sometimes there's logistical things too. It just depends. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, this one isn't going to work, but maybe you can go on the next one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like usually it's a lot of times it's just people knowing like that they're going with an actual person.
Yeah.
I think like when you sign up for another travel company, like a big travel company, there's some amazing travel companies out there, like Intrepid, for example. Like they're great. G Adventures, like they're great.
Yeah.
Different kinds of trips, but like we have some overlap. But like when you sign up with them, you don't know who you're going with. Like you're kind of like, all right, I know I'm going with G Adventures, or I know I'm going with Intrepid, and like I'm sure the trip will be great, but like who will I be with? And that's kind of the mystery of group travel is like you don't really know who you're going to be put with, but at least in my case, like they know they're going to be with me, and so they can talk to me. I answer their emails. They can get on a call with me. They see me on social media. They can kind of get to know me. Like, I think it personalizes the trip a lot more and gives them some comfort to know that they'll know at least one person. Like, even if they don't know anyone else in the group, they know I'm going to be there and they know what I look like. And they can like vet me on the internet. I think that gives people like a little bit more
Yeah.
comfort to know that there's at least one person that looks familiar to them versus like this whole thing is just a complete mystery to me. Because I do that too. I do a lot of group travel in different formats, and I don't know a soul. I don't know one person that I'm going to be with, and it's like, all right, like buckle up, here we go. This It's a very intimidating concept for a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you like all of your trips are with intention. And I also think when you talked about the cooking class and how it's part of it, it's not necessarily just cooking the meal, but it's that connection you have with the people you're cooking with. And it's intentional, it's about storytelling, transformational at times, right? So how do you create experiences like that? Like what's your planning process like to try to create experiences like that?
Yeah, I really plan my group travel the way I would plan my own travel. Like a lot of people will ask me like, how do you decide where to take groups? Or how do you decide like what you're gonna do with people? And I say like honestly, like I just plan I go the places that I want to go and I do the things that I want to do. And it's really designed over like personally my type of travel because I've learned that my type of travel is a lot of people's travel or it's things that they didn't know that they wanted and needed. They just hadn't thought about it or maybe like don't have the experience to even know that these things exist. I'm also like pretty ADHD, and so I like very hands-on travel. I don't love listening to tour guides talk. I don't love like long like stand I always tell my guides I don't like standing around. I don't it's if it's hot and the sun is out, like please don't make my group stand there and listen to somebody talk. Like to me, we can learn those things by doing. Like you get a lot for me personally, I get a lot more out of a cooking class or like going on an adventure or like whatever it might be, like a Bollywood dance class, whatever. Like I get more out of that than just listening to somebody talk. So my trips are definitely designed around like hands-on active travel, whether that's active in a cooking class or active by hiking up a
Yeah.
mountain. But I really try to find the most authentic things I can find that don't feel touristy and make you feel immersed with the locals, don't make you feel like you're kind of a spectator, but you're just part of it. I usually try to find at least one type of experience that gives back to the locals. Again, cooking classes. We'll do a walking tour to acclimate ourselves to like the new places we're in. I usually try to fit in like some cool restaurants or like wine tastings or cocktail classes. Um, I also look at like I'm not like okay, we're going here and we're not going to do anything that's on like the top 10 list because it's touristy. I don't just avoid the things that people want to do. I kind of like balance out like do I think those things are actually worth doing or are they going to make you feel like cattle being herded around, or are we going to be in long lines, and like is it kind of like a um manipulated experience to make us feel like we're, doing something authentic. So I try to really balance all that out. But I also understand, like, I don't go to Paris, but if you're going to go to Paris, I'm not going to say, let's skip the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
something that people obviously like have on their list. But I might say, all right, how could we see the Eiffel Tower in a different way? Like,
Yeah.
what's something more unique that we could do besides just, the typical thing. So I really just try to balance all of those things out. But
Okay. Yeah, I
um,
love that. Yeah, and I was gonna say too, I love that you challenge people outside of their comfort zone. So, some like you mentioned dancing, right? And I knew like if I went on one of your trips and we had dancing, I already know that in the pit of my stomach, I would be like, oh no, because I feel like I have two left feet and I can't dance, and it would but it's so amazing how when you challenge yourself to think differently and think like, okay, I'm just going to seize this moment and try it and not care what other people think. And honestly, a lot of people care how they look when they're doing certain things, so that stops them from doing it. But then when they do it, they realize how it could possibly change their entire outlook on whatever it is, right? And I think
mhm.
that's what you provide on your trips, is like this experience that maybe they just wouldn't do it on their own, but by being there, you're like, we're gonna do it. So
Yeah, and I
that's
always tell people too,
yeah,
like, if it's something you really don't want to do, you
yeah,
don't have to. You can
right,
watch, you can just skip it all together. Like, if it's not your thing, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to dance, you don't have to dance. Like,
yeah,
it's my trips are basically like, here's the itinerary,
yeah,
do what you want and skip what you want, and all you need to make sure is that you're back in the van when we're leaving to go to another city. Like, other than that, if you skip everything, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but you're allowed
right,
to. So
yeah,
I don't force anything on anybody.
yeah. Now, how have any other trips been like didn't go as planned? I know you said like personally you've had those experiences, but when you've taken groups out, have any of them kind of just gone a totally different direction?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I've definitely had like trips, some more than others, where things just weren't like in our favor. I mean, I think that's what travel is. Like, you can't travel this much and not have things go wrong, and you can't have 12 to 14 people and not have something go wrong. But yeah, like, I've had just recently, like my India trip, this year, we had the worst luck, or like my group, I should say my group had the worst luck. There was an Air India flight okay, so Air India just had that big
yeah,
crash.
yeah.
This is before that. There was I had three people in my group not show up because they got 6 hours into the air and had to turn around and fly back to Chicago because somebody threw stuffed blankets down the toilets, and every single toilet on the plane went down.
Oh
And
my
you can't
God.
fly, you can't stay in flight if you don't have functional toilets, or a certain percentage of functional
Yeah.
toilets. So they literally had to fly these people back to Chicago. And then
Wow.
two out of three of the people couldn't get on another flight until like 3 days later. So they're already missing like 4 days of the trip. So
Yeah.
they ended up not coming at all, which broke my heart.
Oh,
One of them came a day late. It was just a mess, and it was all over the news, like this Air India flight. So
oh
I mean,
my
stuff like, yeah, that was bad. So my group was half as big as it was supposed to be, because, and then I had another woman, same group, who just didn't come at all. Like, I was like, are
God.
you not coming? And she just like didn't. She was just literally a no-show for like a vacation, and I had to like track her down. So there's little things like that. That's not the norm, but I mean, I have weird things like that. That one was weirder than normal, but I would say the biggest one was Morocco 2023. There was an earthquake, and it hit as I think my flight was 8 minutes delayed, and had I gotten there on time, I literally would have been on the tarmac when an earthquake hit Marrakesh, Morocco. It hit in the Atlas Mountains. That was the epicenter, but Marrakesh definitely like
Wow.
felt it, and there was destruction in Marrakesh. I ended up landing, I think, a minute or two after the earthquake had hit, to the point where like it wasn't even in the news yet. The only reason I knew is because one of the women in my group had gotten there before me, and she was on a rooftop in Marrakesh when the earthquake hit, and like yeah, she had a whole different experience.
Oh,
And then the rest of my group was like in Madrid on a layover. And so they were about to get on a plane to come to Marrakesh. And this is like, you know, midnight. And I'm having to make a judgment call on whether or not I should have the rest of my group come or I just call off the trip entirely. So long story short, I ended up having them come. I stayed up all night and I was reading like travel groups and everyone was like, I'm canceling my trip to Morocco. I'm canceling my trip to Morocco. Don't go to Morocco. Like everyone was like, yeah, I'm out. And from what I kind of made like an educated decision and I was like, I don't think they're going to get hit by another earthquake. I could somewhat assess the damage of the city and from my personal experience after going to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, I feel like countries are already suffering enough during a natural disaster.
mhm.
And so for all the tourists to pull out and cancel
Yep.
trips, you're hurting them more. So
Mm.
even though it may not be ideal to go through with your trip to a place that just experienced a national disaster, the locals are really like depending on you to eat in their restaurants and shop in their stores and stay in their hotels. Like I think people are one, they're just fearing for their own safety, but they're also kind of like, oh, I don't want to go after like, all after there's destruction and aftermath. But those are the times they need you the most. And so I told my group, we're gonna stay here, we're gonna go through with it. It may not be the same trip as what we planned, but I think it's gonna be more meaningful. And so they were all great. They were on board. They're like, yep, let's do it. And that is still to this day one of the most memorable and like heartbreaking and meaningful
Mhm.
trips that I've done with a group because they realize like the power that they have as travelers
Yeah.
to support a local community when they need it the
Mhm.
most. And everyone was so grateful because we were some of the only people there because everyone else was like, I'm out. Like I'm not going to be here anymore.
Wow.
And so like our tourism meant more than ever at that
Mhm.
time. And I think it like just taught a really important, valuable lesson to everybody that this matters to people that you're
Yeah.
there. Your tourism dollars aren't just for fun. Like they go
Yeah.
towards people and their livelihood and their families, and you're helping support them by being there.
Yeah. Oh, such a powerful story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I was in Puerto Rico recently talking to planners, and that's a question they always ask about Hurricane Maria, but it's like it's been a while, and they actually need you to plan events in Puerto Rico still. So, and we're gonna wrap up on some final questions, but you mentioned about helping people in the community. And on your site, I love that you wrote this. You put the goal is to always leave a place better than you found it, give more than you take. And I wanted to find out like what can you share as far as in what ways you do that outside of it? Because I know you do some give back. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think the premise of it's in my mind kind of built on like leave no trace, which if people aren't familiar, it's essentially like if you go hiking, like don't leave your garbage behind. Like leave the place how you found it, right? Like don't make it worse. And I agree with that. However, I feel like it's our obligation as travelers and tourists to take that a step further and instead of just leaving it how you found it, like what if you could make it a little bit better or do something?
Yeah.
I know that these are like minor gestures and that we're not saving the world like by taking a group trip to a country, but you are making a difference in the lives of some people,
Yeah.
and just setting an example, I think, for others. And like I said, teaching travelers how to be mindful travelers and how to be responsible travelers and how to think about where their tourism dollars go and who they're supporting. And so it's to me like setting a bigger thing in motion beyond just like what we're actually capable of doing on one trip. So that's kind of like the premise behind it. It was something I've always wanted to do. And I would say almost all of my trips now have some sort of give back component. And going forward, every trip that I create when I design it, I make sure that it has something like that in it. And usually it's depends on the country. I'll like Cuba is one of the first ones it started with because of that trip to Cuba that got canceled in 2020. Even at that time, before I had a travel business and I was going to Cuba for the first time, I had done some research and obviously knew the state of Cuba and how little they have, and that their only way to really get what they need is by tourists bringing it in for them. So I had a suitcase of donations that I had gotten from all my coworkers and everybody I knew who knew I was going, like contributed. And I had this whole suitcase packed and ready to go. And I didn't get to bring it to Cuba because my whole trip got canceled. So that kind of like always bothered me that I didn't get to do that. And so when I finally got to bring my groups to Cuba, I made a point of really drilling home that like this is really important that you bring things and it doesn't have to cost you money. It doesn't have to be you spending money in a store. It could be going through your closet. It could be going through your medicine cabinet. It could be telling other people that you know that you're going, because you would not believe how many people want to help and have things laying around that they don't need. So, like this last trip to Cuba, I think we brought over 20 suitcases of medicine and supplies between my three groups. And like, yeah, maybe one suitcase isn't that big of a deal, but 20 suitcases make a huge difference if everybody can bring
Yep.
something. So we give all of those supplies out to different places, schools, doctors, dentists, people in their homes, our hosts that we stay with. You know, we ask them ahead of time what they're looking for. I have contacts in Cuba and we'll just say, you know, is there anybody that you know personally needs something? And sometimes it's like, yeah, this person needs antibiotics or they're going to lose their leg, or there's a little boy that's sick with whatever and like he needs this medicine. More often than not, I end up having that stuff on me because everybody's pitching in and giving me like their old prescriptions and clothes and things like that. So Mexico City, we walk dogs at a shelter and donate like food and collars. Um, Kenya, we're going to be bringing sanitary pads to a school because I just learned this when I went to Kenya and it broke my heart. We went to a school and they said a lot of these girls get behind in school because when they have their period, they don't go. So imagine like girls having a period
Yeah.
5 to 7 days every single month,
Yeah.
and they're sitting out of school. They're getting so behind. They're like 12 weeks behind by the end of the year if they can't go to school because they don't have sanitary pads. So we're bringing sanitary pads for them. So it just depends on the country and the project and whatever I'm finding is needed. Morocco, we bring school supplies to kids in the Sahara and we bring them like soccer balls and things like that. And then I also donate like proceeds to the High Atlas Foundation for earthquake relief, because even though it was almost 2 years ago, like there's still communities that are rebuilding and suffering, and there's women that have gone through trauma as a result of that. So I try to find like different unique projects to support, either directly on my trip or through 1% for the Planet, which is if people aren't familiar, it's an organization through Patagonia, and any member of 1% for the Planet vouches to give at least 1% of their annual revenue to environmental or social organizations around the world.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, if somebody wants to ever help donate for trips, what's the best way that they should approach you? Is it just sending you an email and saying, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
interested in donating"? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I
Um,
usually have all kinds of different ways that people can help out.
Yeah, I know. I could talk to you forever because I think what you're doing is just so powerful. And not only just learning about what you do for people, like the transformation that people can go through, but it's what you do for communities, and also how you curate experiences that are going to help a community. Like I saw on your site too, you purposely don't choose all inclusives or cruise ships, which now learning about you and hearing about what you're doing makes 100% sense. And I just, thank you for being a leader in this space and leading with your heart. It is just so powerful. So is there any final thoughts that you want to leave the listeners with?
I don't think so. Nothing in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah, well, Laura, thank you so much. And now, for anybody listening, Laura Ericson has her site. I'll share all of the information, but you're also launching a podcast, and I wanted to mention this, and it's Type 2 Travel Podcast. When is that live? Is it already out there, or?
No, you can subscribe to it. It's on my page, and we'll be doing tons of promotion this month, but it's launching officially on July 16th.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's a lot of similar things to what you're hearing from me now, but I'm mainly interviewing like industry experts, people who've traveled with me, people from other countries. Like it's a lot of different kinds of people sharing their stories and their knowledge about travel.
That's incredible. Well, I love everything you're doing, and I love the upcoming trips. Like I said, I will be reaching out, but Again, Laura, thank you so much. I appreciate this and for you just sharing everything with me and us. And yeah, thank you again for being here. And we'll talk soon, okay?
And thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.